friends. Welcome to another episode of the Called Women Show. I'm your host, Natasha Miller, and today I have another great conversation to share with you today. I have in the studio with me Ashlee Record. She is a business strategist and mentor to Christian women online service providers worldwide. As a visionary leader, she equips Christian women assigned to the marketplace to reach greater levels of influence, impact, and income in partnership with God. Thousands have been transformed through her biblical life and business teachings, events, and one on one programs centered on online business strategies, spiritual development, soul care, and marketplace domination in one's sphere of influence. So, called women, I want you to help me welcome Ashlee Record to the Called Women Show. Welcome, Ashlee.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, it truly is an honor to have you here with me today. I am grateful for the way that we were able to connect through a mutual friend. Her name is Tiffany Bethea, and when she recommended me having you on the show, I was able to look at all that you were doing, all that God had called you to do, and I was like, yes, she needs to be on the show to help encourage our community of called women. So I'd love for you to just share very quickly. I know that I shared your professional bio, but I'd love for you to just even say a bit about who you are and your family and so forth.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I am a high school English teacher turned entrepreneur by God's calling. And so, I'm just so excited about this platform because more Christian women need spaces and places where they can discuss the ins and outs of answering the call when God is calling you away from something that you thought was your plan, your purpose, and his assignment into his actual plan and purpose and assignment for your life. And so I'm also a wife. My husband and I will be celebrating 7 years this September. We have three children, two together, and then one that before marriage. And
Mhm.
I am just grateful to God just for all that He has done thus far and that He's going to continue to do by His grace. Not even just in the marketplace, but in our lives. We love our church home. We live here in Georgia, originally from Chicago. We moved
Okay.
here, I think, 3 years ago now.
Mhm.
And we found our church within about 5 months. We weren't really looking at first, but as soon as we
Wow.
found the church, I knew that this is where we belonged. I sent it to
Mhm.
him. He knew that this is where we belonged. We joined the first Sunday that we visited. It's called the Faith Center in Tucker,
Mm.
Georgia. And
Okay.
we're just grateful to God for just all the amazing things that's happening.
Yes, I love how you shared that when you guys relocated, you were able to discover what church God was calling you to because my husband and I recently relocated from Chicago here to Texas
Oh,
2
wow.
years ago, and it took us over a year to
Wow.
find where God wanted us to be. So that's just really great to hear how God answered that prayer so quickly and swiftly. And I know that you even mentioned that you were a English high school teacher before you stepped into the role of full-time entrepreneurship and answering the call of God on your life. So I love for you to share, how was that transition? How did you get out of the mindset? I'm sure you were planning, hey, this is my career. I've gone to school for this. I'm passionate about the next generation and words. So how was that process? Bring us into when God started speaking to you about this transition.
Absolutely. So it's so funny because I did not go to school for
Mm.
English
Okay.
teaching. Yes. So I
Wow.
started off on a path to being a high school English teacher, but the program was just taking too long. I was a single mom at the time,
Mhm.
and I just couldn't make the time commitment. I had been in school for so long
Yeah.
between needing to drop classes and having a hard time with my math class and just really trying to manage being a young mom and also being a college student, providing for my
Mhm.
son, independence, and all the things. And so I decided to let secondary education go and just get a degree. And so my focus
Mhm.
actually was English literature.
Wow.
And when I graduated, I still kind of had the goal of being a teacher in some capacity, but without the
Mhm.
certification. I kind of thought that it wouldn't really be an option traditionally. So maybe I'll teach in someone's program, maybe I'll get into a master's program and become a teacher. But I kind of thought like that wouldn't necessarily happen, the traditional route. And I was right in that sense. I did end up being a substitute teacher, but a long term substitute teacher. So for the entire school year, I was the teacher for the seventh grade class. I started off with seventh grade. And it was because they didn't have a certified teacher. I had no professional training, no necessary like actual formal education or background in that sense. But I knew that I was called to the classroom. Like I just knew that this is what God wanted me to do. And my students grew exponentially by God's grace during our year together. They improved in their reading skills, their writing skills, their personal development. Like it was just amazing. And then from there, I ended up in the high school classroom. So while I was doing that, I was also like speaking just around the Chicagoland area at churches, women's events, conferences, things like that, because God had given me a message and I just was being obedient, very much an introvert, but more so a servant of God than anything. So when he called me, I would go. And so I was on these different, utilizing my voice in the way that he commanded in these spaces. And
And
from there, mhm,
and what was the message? Because you shared that there was a
yeah.
message that the Lord was amplifying in you while you were also teaching. What was that?
That is so good. I think the message was really in the obedience, I would say, more than anything else. It was really about obeying him because every place that I spoke, so I spoke at like Mother's Day events, women's conferences, church events, it was something different, kind of based upon what the event was centered around or what, I was asked to speak on as it relates to faith, the Bible, etc. But in general, I think the journey part for me in that season was really developing me as a speaker, like developing my confidence in who God called me to be so that, at 24, I could be positioned and prepared for what I'm doing now at 34. So I
Awesome.
really think that was really more so the emphasis than anything.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Mhm. And so, as a teacher, I was just driven to focus on my students while also again kind of keeping my spiritual ear open to God's instruction. And so in 2018, that's when kind of God gave me the direction to do a workshop helping Christian women entrepreneurs, not even entrepreneurs, but Christian women accomplish their goals because a lot of Christian women had been like procrastinating on the things that God wanted them to do, setting personal goals versus goals that were in alignment with what God wanted them to accomplish. And so he gave me a blueprint, like a framework to walk them through. And I had never hosted an event before. I had only been speaking at other people's things. But when he told me to do this, I was again obedient. And so I hosted my first workshop. It was amazing. And then the women who attended were also some of my close friends. And they just kind of asked for it to be an annual event. And so I did that event. No thought of being a coach, no thought of being a full time entrepreneur, totally
Wow.
committed to being a teacher. And it just turned into an annual event that I did at the beginning of the year with some workshops also on procrastination during the summertime because of course I wasn't in school, so I had the space and the opportunity to just kind of serve in that capacity.
Yeah.
But in 2021, God pretty much said like, this is it, don't go back to school, don't, the classroom scene is over, it's time for you to be full-time in the marketplace.
Wow.
And that was, it wasn't it wasn't an easy transition just because uh, being a teacher was a sustainable lifestyle. Like I loved what I did and it gave me steady, predictable income that, contributed to our household, provided for our kids and all that great stuff. And without it, it was like, God, well, what am I supposed to do now in my business? I started coaching the year before and I didn't have any clients in 2021 when God told me to become a full time entrepreneur. So it didn't even make sense mathematically what he was
Yeah.
commanding me to do. But again, I obeyed and I kind of just let my principal know. I had a meeting with him and my assistant principal at the time. And I just let them know I wouldn't be returning. And then we also ended up moving here to Georgia that same year as well.
Hey there, I know that you are watching today's episode, but really quickly, I want to ask you a question. Do you know that God has called you to be a leader? That God is calling you to help disciple women, that God is asking of you to embrace all that He's called you to be. But maybe you feel as though you're not healed enough. Maybe you're still struggling with some thoughts of inadequacy and you need a pick me up. You need to be reminded of what's possible and what God is calling you to do. If that's you, I want to let you know that there is a completely free resource, which is called Healed Enough to Lead. You can simply go to www.calledwomen.com/healed to lead. And you're going to be able to download this free ebook, which is going to help you discover, embrace, and simply walk out and become the leader God has called you to be. So let's get back into the episode. Wow.
Yep.
Wow. What a beautiful, exciting journey, right? I just love how we can see God's handprints upon every season of your life because like the common thread or the common word that kept popping in my mind was the word obedience, right? That you were very much in a place of like, okay, God, I'm going to obey. I may not have everything clearly in front of me, but I'm going to trust you with the next word of instruction. And I think that that's so key, especially as women, right? Because I do believe that there is an influx. There is um a large remnant, right, of women who are stepping into and acknowledging that God is calling them into the marketplace. And, one thing that I enjoyed when I was going through your website is that you had a lot of kind of like military boot camp, like, girl, let's go. You can get
Yeah.
into the trenches. You can do that. So I'd love for you to share because you do help Christian women understand how to use their gifts in the marketplace. And it's not just, showing them how to do it practically. You're also sharing with them just biblical principles and, powerful supernatural strategies, right, to help them take dominance in those spaces. So I'd love for you to just share even more of what you do now, even into more of like a microscopic way of like how you use, I think, the theme, right? And you can also correct me if I'm wrong, like your theme of really being able to encourage women to not be afraid to get their hands dirty when it comes to obeying the call of God on their life.
Amen. I love that. I've never heard it described that way, but I love that description. And it
Yeah.
really is about being obedient no matter what it takes and no matter what it looks like. So many times we get lost in the process. We kind of reject the process because it doesn't necessarily feel good. There's a
Yeah.
pruning that's required, there's a development that's required, there's discipline that we have to have. And so, a lot of times with Christian women entrepreneurs, they want the success that God showed them. They want the outcomes that
Yeah.
they are, kind of being shown in the spirit, but the process that it takes in the natural to be set apart in the marketplace, to go against the grain, to turn down the contracts and the opportunities that are not in alignment with the will of God for your life, your business, or even your clients and customers, and to be willing to do things without a blueprint because God has sent you to be
Yes.
the trailblazer. God has sent you to be the example. That part doesn't feel good. And that's the part that is often rejected. And so,
Mhm.
what one of the things that I'm very, very passionate about is order in the marketplace and how Christian
Mhm.
women operate, because so many times we approach entrepreneurship with more of a lackadaisical kind of mindset where it's like, well, I can do this when I want to. I'll post content when I feel like it. I'll show up when I'm ready. And there's a lot of comfort zone happening
Mhm.
in the marketplace, especially for Christian women, because we're like, we're called here, we're sent here. And so I trust God, He'll provide. And if He doesn't, He'll make a way another way or it'll cut. No, there has to be some order, there has to be structure, there has to be discipline. And so that's really one of the things that I emphasize with my clients on every level. I do business strategy, so we work with their marketing, their offers, their pricing, but that mindset piece that, getting
Yes.
in line with the obedience and the willingness to obey wholeheartedly no matter what it costs, that's the
Mhm.
most essential part of what I do.
I love that. I don't think I mean, I've spoken to a lot of women who are in the marketplace who do different forms of strategy, but you saying that keyword order to me,
Yes,
when you said that, I was like, wow, I never thought about it that way. There is an order, there is a structure, there's a plan, there is a way to be able to get the results that you are expecting and believing God for. And I think it's just so key, especially as Christian women. I love how you're hyper focusing on that particular demographic, because I do think that we can lean so much on the spiritual or that prophetic word or God's going to do it. But again, like you said, you don't even post consistently. And even
that
for
part.
me, like I'm in the middle of building my own, well, it's not my personal brand, but like the Call Women brand. And it is um now I am in the place to where it's like, hey, as Called Women grows, it's growing also because of my personal brand and knowing that they are in tandem together, and knowing that, hey, you can't just show up when you want to, right? Like
Yeah,
you have to really take this call, take this assignment seriously. And I even just want to ask you, like, what would you say the church or the body of Christ, how can we do better in equipping women, um and just God's people in general, to actually go out and do what he's calling us to do? Because the thing is like I feel like we do a great job of like encouraging you and praying for you, but when it comes to the practical steps of saying, hey sis, hey brother, you need to actually go hire a coach, you need to get around, so and so, like this isn't just going to happen just waking up magically. You know what I'm
right.
saying? And I think as supernatural people, right, we want that. Or we know that God can do things supernaturally, but he also needs our willingness to
Yeah.
also get into the thick of it as well.
That is so true. That is so true. And one thing that I love about my church is that there is a huge emphasis on the practical application of the Word of God, specifically around life. So
Good.
I think I've done, since we have joined the church in 2021, maybe like one or two business events, but most of the emphasis is really life in general. So, like,
Mhm.
applying the Word of God to your marriage, your parenting, your personal life with God, your personal relationship with God, really emphasizing what it looks like to walk by faith and live by faith. And so I think when it comes to entrepreneurship or just callings in general, because not everyone is called to be an entrepreneur, some people
Right.
are called to the corporate world, some people are
Of course.
called to being, mothers or fathers. Like that's literally what God put you here to break the generational curse and be the best mother, the best
Yeah,
father. And so I think having more conversations around what that looks like
that's
and
good.
what that process is and what's required in order to excel in that capacity, I think that's
Mhm.
really the missing link and the bridge that needs to
Good.
be built in order for us to
Mhm.
see more Christian men and Christian women excelling in their assignment.
That is so good. I'm like, yes, because I think too, just even as a society and as a world, right? We like to venture and do what's trending or what's
Yes.
popular. And I think too, it was interesting. I was having a conversation with a friend, and I was sharing with her just our entrepreneurial journey and how like we started in 2012, 2013 with like a Facebook group. Then we blogged, and then we went into webinars, and then we went on to online conferences, and then COVID happened, right?
Mm.
And it was like when COVID hit, it just awakened a lot of people into the opportunity of entrepreneurship, of like podcasting, having an online presence. I remember, trying to get a microphone on Amazon. It was all sold out because everybody was, becoming aware. They were enlightened to the possibilities. But I do think, too, just like how you mentioned, that we can do a disservice if we assume or just continue to preach, even from the altar, like, you're called to this, you're called to that. But it's also being able to bring affirmation and also practical methods and ways to help encourage those who feel called to different spheres of influence,
Yeah.
because it is true, like, and you're an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur, like we've seen it, that if if my husband wasn't an entrepreneur, I would probably just be like an entrepreneur, because for me, I'm like, I can follow the vision and do the work, but to literally have thick skin, to have the resilience, to have the faith, to
Yeah.
continue to build a company from the ground up. I mean, the risk it takes, the faith
Woo!
it takes, the sacrifice it takes, right? I'm like, whoo, I don't think I could have did it by myself, but the Lord brought me a helpmate. So I think like that's just a great point. And you even shared that you really want to help women in their process of faith as they are navigating into the marketplace. So, how would you encourage a woman right now who is feeling led to step into the marketplace? Like she has a similar story or a similar journey and she's been feeling that pulling. How would you encourage her to step out in faith? Like, can you kind of share what is that process of saying yes and stepping fully into it?
Absolutely. You have to close your eyes. I think about Peter and how he was the only disciple who decided to get off the boat. And the level of faith that it took, I know when he, took his eyes off Jesus, Jesus said, "Oh ye of little faith." But he was the one who had the only faith to even get off the boat, right?
Mhm.
And so anytime I'm doing something with God in the marketplace, I always refer to Peter and his faith walk in that moment. And so, if you are doing something where God is literally calling you off the boat into a new level of influence, into a new level of impact, I encourage you to, like Peter, to focus on Jesus, to ignore any other voices, any other influences that are trying to distract you, that are trying to get your attention, and be willing to do what's necessary to excel in your assignment.
Mhm.
It's so easy to settle or to rely only on being gifted. And
Yeah.
sometimes we're not willing to do what's necessary to also be equipped, right? Because the
Mhm.
gifting part is a part of the process, but you need to be equipped as well in order to excel in the area of your gifts. Like I think about the woman with the oil and how the prophet told her, you have the oil in your house, but she wasn't able to just go door to door and sell the oil by itself. She needed those vases. She needed those containers for the oil in order for her to do the thing that led to basically financial freedom, like not
Yeah.
just for her, but for her children for the rest of their lives, the word says. And so when you think about that, there's not just a gifting that's required, there's also an equipping required, there's a development that's
Mhm.
required. And sometimes we have to go outside of what we have in order
Yeah.
to really get to the outcome that God desires for us. And we have to be willing to walk by faith. Like we have to
Yeah.
be willing to trust in God wholeheartedly, no matter what it looks like.
Yeah. And just even with equipping, right? Because I know that right now there are a lot of different voices that women can tap into when it comes to entrepreneurship, when it comes to building a business, getting into the marketplace. And how would you advise a woman who is a Christian woman that's like, hey, I want to go straight to the equipping? Because I'm sure, like, we're in this space, it can become very oversaturated, right? To where
Mhm.
you may not know what questions to ask and like where to start practically, right? And I know with you that you provide services to help women start from, the ground level, but just even for, a woman who is inquiring about this, like, hey, I feel like, like God's called me to this, but where do I start to get equipped? Just very like practically, like, would you encourage them to find a mentor or a business coach mentor, find a podcast, like should they read certain books to really kind of help them change their mindset, and help equip them to really kind of step into this, because you really do need that time to where it's like it doesn't just come naturally. It's going to take a lot of sacrifice. It's going to be a learning curve for some
Yep.
people. So it's like how can a woman really step back and know, hey, this is the first step. I'm trusting God. I know that he's telling me to get out the boat, but what can I do today to help me get closer to making an influence in the marketplace?
That is so good. The first step is always going to be through your relationship with God, developing your mindset.
Mhm.
especially if this is something new to you. I know for me, as a high school English teacher who was wholeheartedly committed to that career, there was
Mhm.
a mindset development process that was necessary in order for me to even be willing to obey God wholeheartedly in this capacity. And
Mhm.
so that mindset work, of course, like your private time with God, your prayer, your fasting, and then also, like you mentioned, the books. There are so many books that help you really expand even the way you think, especially as an entrepreneur around money. I think
Mhm.
in the church. Now, again, I didn't really talk about me, my upbringing, but I didn't grow up in the church, which
Mhm.
is always a surprise for a lot of people because I'm so
Mhm.
passionate about Christianity. But my parents were actually Muslim.
Mhm.
And my mom eventually she did become a Christian. She grew up as a Christian, but she became a Muslim later in life. And then I was kind of like not indoctrinated, but in the beginning, both of my parents were Muslim. My dad is still a Muslim. And so
Mhm.
um for me, it has always been about making sure that I am prioritizing just a relationship with God, like
Mhm.
not religion or anything like that, but more just genuinely seeking him, his voice, his will, his way daily, and cultivating that daily altar, that daily time. And so
Mhm.
in addition to that, also making sure that you are developing your mindset around what it is the word of God says about money, what God's will is for money, and what is God's system for the management of money.
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
like I said, being someone who didn't grow up in the church, I didn't have to overcome as much of the
Yeah.
faulty thinking when it comes to money that a lot of Christians who grew up in the church did. But
Mhm.
I've heard and I've worked with Christian women who say things like, well, I thought that money was evil. I thought I was
Yeah.
doing people a disservice by charging more, or I thought I was doing people a good service by giving my service away for free. And so
Mhm.
I think that a part of the process, that's the development process that's necessary for entrepreneurs, Christian women entrepreneurs, is getting comfortable with assessing a proper value for the work that you do. And
Mhm.
so, in addition to that, yes, you do need either like a business coach, a business mentor, someone who has a skill in the area that you are looking to excel in, and they can help you excel in that area. So, if it's, you want to sell a product, who are the
Mhm.
people who are excelling with selling products God's way? And I don't just mean hiring Christian coaches, but I mean
Mhm.
hiring people who operate in the marketplace in integrity, who
Yeah.
actually are committed to other people's success, sometimes even
Mhm.
above their own. Because
Yeah.
honestly, when people are self motivated and they focus on, what's good for me and making sure that I have this like facade and this appearance, it can look like,
Yeah.
they're doing well and maybe they are in their bank account, but their soul is corrupted. And
Mhm.
so it's important for us as Christian women to to honor our relationship with God enough to not invest into working with people just because they've accumulated the wealth we desire, but they don't have the heart that looks
Mhm.
like God's heart when it comes to how they went about accumulating that wealth. So I
That's
think that
good.
that's very important too.
Yeah, no, that's definitely great what you were talking about it with being able to discern who you're working with. And I think that's something that I've been, coming into just in the last couple of years, especially being in the space. And, our company, we've been able to really impact lives. And we really do pride ourselves in being a company that operates out of a place of integrity, right? To where it's like, yeah, there's, goals that we have as a company, but whether we hit those goals or not, we are going to serve our people. We're going
Yes.
to serve them well. Even if we thought we were going to get 100 people into a program and we have 10, we're going to serve those 10 as if there
Yes.
were 100, right? And I think that's so key, especially nowadays when anybody can pop up and say, I've made $1 million, screenshot it, put it on the screen, and it's just like, y'all, you got to look at people's life. You got to
Yeah.
even be prayerful of God. Like, do you want me to sign up for this? Versus coming out of that place, I think, too, out of that kind of orphan poverty mindset where it's
Mhm.
just like, oh my God, I need to make money. It's like there is no quick money. Like, quick money is fast money and it's dirty money.
Yep.
It's like not, and fast money can happen sometimes, but to really build a successful business, you're going to go through ebbs and flows. And once you hit that great idea or hit that, that sweet spot, then things will continue to come into a great space there.
Hmm.
So, Ashley, I would love for you to even just share, because there's some exciting things that you have on the horizon that are coming up for women to stay connected with you, because I know just from our conversation that you are filled with so much wisdom, not just in the business world, but spiritually, intellectually, even just emotionally, like your maturity and your determination to truly be a woman of God in the marketplace. So if there are women who are like, I need her resources, I want to get connected to her and what she's doing, how can they do that? And also share with us what you have coming up as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That's so kind of you to say. So I do have my first in-person event happening here in Georgia this year, the Assigned Experience. I've hosted, like I said, workshops. I've done master classes, but I have never done a multi-day event, and let
Mm,
alone anything of this magnitude. And so I'm
mm,
just grateful to God for even trusting me with this assignment for Christian
mhm,
women entrepreneurs, to show them how to become the woman who dominates the
mhm,
marketplace in their sphere of influence. The
mhm,
Christian woman entrepreneur who knows that she's assigned to millions, and not just millions in her money, because so many times we hear about, oh, I'm going to be a millionaire, I'm a God
yeah,
made millionaire, etc. But like again, what's your heart look like? What's your
yeah,
mindset look like? What are your management systems look like? Because if you are
mhm,
able to reach the millions, but you can't manage them, you're not stewarding them God's way, the same God who released them to you will take them back. And so
mm,
it's important for Christian women to be equipped with not just the skills to increase financially, but also increase in their influence, and then also increase in their ability to steward that influence well. And so that's what's
mhm,
happening here in Georgia, November 7th through the 9th, the Assigned
okay,
Experience. And I'm just, like I said, just so honored for God, like with God trusting me with this level of impact in the marketplace. I do have a summit coming up, a virtual summit, the God's
mhm,
Businesswoman Summit. And we are going to be having a very candid conversation around all things faith and business and what it takes to excel in the marketplace God's way. A part of what Holy Spirit showed me pertaining to the summit is that it's really like a state of the kingdom address,
mm,
where it's looking at, what's really happening in the kingdom at this time. There are so many prophets popping up with all these prophetic words, and sometimes the prophetic words conflict. And so I think it's important to kind of have an ear, to be able to hear the word of God from people who are, truly sitting at his feet, and to be
yeah,
able to tell you how to apply what God is saying to your business so that you can
mhm,
excel in the area that God wants you to dominate. A
mhm,
part of the mandate that God gave me for the assigned experience is that Christian women entrepreneurs need to be positioned to repossess the marketplace. And I know you
mhm,
talked about the website and like the boot camp
mhm,
feel, the military feel, because that's literally what he showed me in the spirit. Like Christian women entrepreneurs being trained, being equipped, marching into position, and then being deployed into the marketplace to dominate in their industries, not allowing people with corrupted hearts, corrupted practices, who mismanage their influence, who mismanage their
yeah,
teams, their clients, their customers, to be leaders in their industries. A lot of times, the reason
yeah,
why those people are leading is because Christian women entrepreneurs who are called to lead have not been equipped in what it takes to really excel in leadership. And,
mhm.
that development is necessary. And that's really what we're doing at the assigned experience.
No, I love it. You guys, man, this is powerful. I love the language that you're speaking and what you're sharing. I could feel the heart of God upon it. And I
Mm,
think that it's like, what the enemy uses to kind of distract people. And I think too, just it's so easy for women to feel overlooked, especially in the marketplace, if they don't fit the mold that they're seeing on social media or online or on the internet, right? And it's just seeing that the Lord's really entrusting you to really see women and to really call out what God has been singing and speaking over them, their whole life, and then being able to meet you and for that baby to be stirred again in their belly to actually pursue what God is asking them to do. So thank you for your obedience and your service to
Thank
women, and to, you know, their call. This is what it's all about here on the Called Women show, is that I want to highlight women who are doing the work, and they're doing the work with a heart of thanksgiving. They're doing the work with the heart of integrity, because they truly want to see women walk in all that God has for them. So,
yeah.
Ashlee, thank you so much for coming on the show, taking the time, pouring into me, pouring into women all over the world to help them to be obedient to the assignment on their life. So, you know, Called Women, all of the information that she shared will be in the show notes for you so that you can stay connected, possibly join her business summit or be a part of her live event in Atlanta. So, thank you so much for joining me, Ashlee. And I pray that we get to see each other in
Yeah,
person one day.
absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having me.